Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Sister Barbara Finch. I'm the Vice President of the Association of Pittsburgh Priests. This is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. This is a special day. This is the International Day of Women. So I offer blessings to all the women and also blessings to all the men who work for equity among women and men. Our topic tonight is how to stand with goals of the Pittsburgh Black Collective. And we're fortunate to have a woman speaker tonight on this International Day of Women. Her name is Dr. Kathy Wilson Humphrey from Carlow University.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to share with you the outcomes of the Black Collective Retreat and ways you can stand with us in this incredible work. The Black Collective was created by an advisory council of intergenerational Black leaders in the city of Pittsburgh to create measurable outcomes that would ensure progress for the Black community of Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas. Let me begin by giving you some context as to how Carlow University's team decided to get engaged with this work. Now, I'm sure that many of you may know the history of Carlow University, but I need to share a bit of it with those of you who may not know our story so that you will fully understand our involvement. In 1843, 7 Sisters of Mercy made their way to Pittsburgh from Ireland to meet the next great need. And many years later, 5 sisters who had joined the order in the States created Mount Mercy College with absolutely nothing. Mount Mercy College is known today as Carlow University. Mount Mercy was created to educate those who otherwise would not have an opportunity to gain a higher education, specifically Catholic women. And to this day, the mission and vision of the Sisters of Mercy continues to guide all that we do. In addition to the rights of women, the sisters have critical concerns in areas of nonviolence and sustainability of the earth and social justice, specifically, as Sister Sheila has stated, anti-racism. While all of these values are important to our work, the value of social justice stands at the foundation of why Carlow University would serve as the facilitator of this work, as it is our mission to develop students that will create a more just and a more merciful world. So our mission calls us to do this work. Our mission calls us to get involved with this work. And our mission calls us to do more than know about the problem. We are called to be a part of the solution. The great philosopher and theologian Frederick Bucher once said, "A calling is a place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meets." The issues of social justice is indeed a deep hunger in our country and specifically in our city, as Pittsburgh has been deemed as one of the worst cities for Blacks to live in our country. Listen for a moment to a news clip that outlines some of the issues that served as a catalyst to our work with the Black Collective.
Pittsburgh likes to think of itself as the most livable city, but one report indicates that is only true for some.
A city commission issued a 94-page study on inequality in Pittsburgh, and as money editor John Delano reports, for many, the city's livability depends on race.
The Mayor's Gender Equity Commission issued its first of 4 reports, this one on Pittsburgh's inequality across gender and race.
We have rates within our Black community that are third world when it comes to infant mortality.
In collaboration with the University of Pittsburgh, new data models examined outcomes based on race and gender. The conclusion?
Most outcomes across health, employment, income, and education, Pittsburgh's men are similar to Pittsburgh's white men, are similar to white men in cities across the country. Likewise, Pittsburgh's white women have similar outcomes to those in comparable cities across the country.
While Pittsburgh's white residents are basically on par with those in other cities, the city's Black residents are much worse in Pittsburgh than other cities.
Pittsburgh's Black women are more likely to be unemployed and live in poverty than Black women in other cities. It's a similar story when it comes to our Black men. Our Black men have a higher level of occupational segregation, as well as higher rates of homicide and dying of cancer and cardiovascular disease than Black men in comparable cities around the country.
Sociologist Junia Howell noted that the reality is that people who are Black could improve their lives just by moving out of Pittsburgh to another city.
Of course, we don't want that to happen.
Keeping that from happening is the next step, creating a level playing field for all.
Sexism and racism are quick and shallow answers in the sense that how this plays out in Pittsburgh, what are the policies in place that are creating barriers? That's what we're trying to figure out.
Now, this report is chock full of interesting data across racial and gender lines in the city of Pittsburgh. You can read this for yourself. Just go to kdk.com and we'll have the link there. Reporting from the mayor's office, I'm John Delano, KDKA News.
That data found in this news clip was not the only catalyst that led our work with the Black Collective. But as Sister Sheila said, the murder of George Floyd also served as a tipping point. For after that event, many of our white brothers and sisters were proclaiming that they were standing with us. Standing with us. Now, while the verbal support was appreciated, many of us in the Black community did not know what standing with us really meant. Furthermore, we struggled to answer the questions asked of us. What can we do to help? These two data points led us to request funding from the Heinz Endowment and the Pittsburgh Foundation to pull together Black leaders who were already engaged in work to improve the lives of Blacks in Pittsburgh, to do the necessary work to answer the question, how can we help? And how can we stand with you? Over 175 Black leaders attended a weekend retreat to collectively create 11 outcomes that, if accomplished, would make Pittsburgh a more livable city for all. Now, the retreat began with a review of the facts. Dr. Andre Perry, a native of Pittsburgh from the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C., whose research compares the state of Blacks in America, state by state, served as our first keynote speaker. And to our surprise, while Pittsburgh ranks among one of the worst cities for Blacks, we are not at the bottom. That was a bit of good news. But his information guided our 11 outcomes. For example, some of the information we learned: when fathers are in the home, the success of children rises exponentially. Concerningly, 60.4% of Black families in Pittsburgh are living without their father. This is due to a long history of Black men being systematically forced out of the home, from slavery to the welfare system, to the inability to find work that could support a family, to racial biases that cause mass incarceration of Black men. All of these points has had and are having an effect on the Black family to this moment. Today in Pittsburgh, Black men make 30% less than white men, and Black women make 27% less than white women and 30% less than white men. The median Black household makes $33,956, and only 33.2% of Blacks in Pittsburgh are homeowners, which means over 66% of Black households are not transferring generational wealth, for homes tend to be the major source of wealth transference. 36% of Black women and 33% of Black men live below the poverty line. And a whole host of issues follow these data points that end in opportunities for us all to pay for things we shouldn't have to. Dr. Perry also shared with us that less than 4.4% of Blacks in Pittsburgh own businesses, and most of those businesses have less than 5 employees. We also heard from Dr. John Wallace and Dr. James Hughley from the Center of Race and Social Problems at the University of Pittsburgh. They shared the dreadful infant mortality rates. As you can see, out of every 1,000 births, 24 Black children die, and the number of white infants' death per 1,000 is less than 2. The number of deaths for cardiovascular disease in the Black community is alarming when you compare it to whites. They also showed this slide that clearly shows that the redlining that segregated Blacks from whites in 1940 in Pittsburgh remains intact, for those red lines still exist today. Only 19% of our Black children are passing the state exams in Pittsburgh, and over 60% of Blacks who attend college never finish. Now, some of this is due to finances, but others is due to ill preparedness. The fatalities from firearms is a great concern, and this must be addressed. This is just a few data points that requires us to determine a way forward. We cannot remain where we are. The participants at the retreat were divided down into 5 groups that represented the 5 social determinants of health, which are income and wealth, public safety, education, health, and housing. Each group submitted 2 to 3 outcomes that they believe would change Pittsburgh. We didn't give them more than 2 to 3 because we wanted a manageable list to work with, although there could have been hundreds. The entire group voted affirmatively on each of the approved outcomes. You will see that these outcomes match some of the data that I have discussed, but each outcome is rooted in data. Let's take a moment now and review the 11 outcomes. You will also note that every outcome can be easily measured. Dr. Margaret Pettigrew and Chintis Pettigrew served as our facilitators for the group that created the health outcomes. The agreed upon outcomes in this area addresses some of the most damaging issues for Blacks in Pittsburgh. We believe if we can reduce the fetal mortality rate in the Black community by 28% in 5 years, and increase participation in mental health services and education by Black couples and family by 20% in 3 years, and decrease cardiovascular events leading to death in the Black community by 20% in the next 5 years, we can change Pittsburgh. So one zip code will no longer dictate one's lifespan as it does today. Our infant mortality rate will not rival third world countries as it does today. And our Black families will be stronger, for they will have addressed the trauma that has plagued their families for generations. Now, because there is little generational wealth in the Black community, there is a tremendous need to provide support to Black business owners so that they can thrive. And we must encourage more Blacks to become business owners. David and Darlene Motley served as facilitators of the Income and Wealth Group. And it was decided that if we can grow Black-owned businesses such that in 10 years, there are triple the number of Black-owned businesses that have 5 or more employees, we can change Pittsburgh. We can help all corporations diversify their spending, and we can decrease the need for companies to go outside of Pittsburgh to find minority vendors. We can help business owners create back office functions so that they can compete well in RFP processes. And we can get this done if we will seed $100 million Black fund to resource Black organizations and businesses in Allegheny County for the next 5 years. We were fortunate also to have Harry Hawkins and Crystal Jennings Riviera from the organization City of Bridges to facilitate our housing group. It was crucial to this group that we first develop a plan to decrease the homelessness in the Black community. We believe when people are properly housed, some of the social ills will dissipate. I am sure that you know that as a community, we pay to manage those social ills. So why not establish a $250 million fund for transitional housing and wraparound services to serve Black families experiencing homelessness and or housing insecurity, and do that by the end of 2023? Why not commit to establishing a $500 million fund for Pittsburgh Region Housing Trusts by the end of 2023, targeting the Black community? When we increase home ownership in the Black community, we change Pittsburgh, and we establish a system that will create generational wealth, that will continue to produce positive results for many years to come. The superintendent of the public schools, Dr. Wayne Walters, served as our facilitator for the education groups. Because the data tells us that children who attend school where people who look like them serve as teachers, we believe it is important to increase the number of Black teachers. Therefore, we would like to provide 500 scholarships to Black students who will commit to working in schools in the greater Pittsburgh region for at least 3 years. And because we know that the family is crucial to student success, we want at least 1,000 city and county family units to complete the first cohort of evidence-based education and family support programs that will lead to the improvement in attendance, the improvement in disciplinary incidents, and the improvement in test scores. Lastly, Council Representative Olivia Bennett worked with the group that looked at the issues of public safety. We will never be the city we want to be if we do not address gun violence and homicide. We are seeking to reduce this violence by 25% in the next 5 to 7 years. During the retreat, the mayor spoke with us, and with tears in his eyes, he talked about the need for help to work on this issue, to make our city better. For that very weekend, people were shot at a funeral of another young man who was murdered. We must also develop more trauma-informed care supportive services in and out of school time spaces where there are 50% Black students. We would like these services to be put in place within the next 2 years. If we can reach these outcomes, we can create a better Pittsburgh for all. Now, since the retreat, we are working to complete an assessment of the work already being done in the outcomes area so that we can determine who's currently working in these areas to ensure that we are not duplicating the work, but finding ways to assist in scaling up the work. We have held meetings and gained a commitment from the Pittsburgh Foundation CEO, who has agreed to help us convene all major foundation leaders. We plan to meet with the corporate leaders to gain their support. Jeff Broadhurst from Eden Park has already agreed to help get more of these meetings convened. We will request a grant to hire a leader to continue to guide this work on a daily basis. And we are targeting a Stand and Work With Us press conference in April with all the companies, foundations, organizations, lawmakers, religious leaders, and individuals that are willing to support this work. So what can you do to stand with the Black community? How can you help? First, we ask that you pray that we will complete these outcomes and become one of the most livable cities for all people. Select one of the outcomes and focus your energy towards making that outcome a reality and commit to that work. Get others engaged in the work. This is an opportunity for us all to get in one boat and to row in one direction to make sure that we are really making the type of impact that is going to change our city for generations, that is going to change our city so that our children today will not live in the same Pittsburgh that we have lived in. Refuse to stop working on this issue until we are a different city. Understand that you cannot do this work without the Black community. Diversity, equity, and inclusion processes and plans that are created without the input of the Black community is not for the Black community. We, like the disabled population, we too say, nothing for us without us. Commit to this work. Don't just stand with us. Commit to working with us to get these outcomes accomplished. And when we do these things, you will be answering a call to meet the city's great hunger. Thank you for your time, and I would be happy at this time to entertain your questions.
So once again, indicate if you have a question or a comment, and we'll call on you. You can either put it in the chat or in the reaction part on your screen, or just raise your hand and I'll call on you.
Barb, we already have one question. Someone wanted to know where they could get a copy of the report.
So we are happy to share a copy of that report with all of you, and I can send out the list of outcomes to you. So I will give them to Barbara and I will let her manage it from there.
Thanks, Kathy. Kathy, I would want to ask you your opinion. The city has decided that they want to work toward a committee that would develop resource centers for our youth. And I've been kind of disturbed by the fact that they're starting by just having staff members on that committee rather than having representatives from the broader community that will ultimately offer the services. So what's your thoughts about that?
Well, actually, I had a conversation with someone about this just last week, and I think it's really important, that we sit down and talk with children and sit down and talk with their parents about what we should create. Because if we create resource centers that students or that children do not want to attend, we've made no progress. And if we will allow them to participate in the design, I think our chances of success in providing them productive things to do will be to all of our advantages.
Thank you. We have, please tell us what is being done by Carlow University.
Well, that's a really broad question. Let me see if I can try to get to that at a macro level. I'm going to assume that you are saying, what is Carlow University going to do in regards to these outcomes? Is that the question?
Would the person who wrote that in the chat please respond? Is that what you're looking for?
How about I answer that question while they're answering?
Okay.
And so Carlo, as I said at the very beginning, Carlo, because this issue sits at the core of our mission, we have served as the conveners. We have been the people who have been bringing individuals together to have the conversation. We have been the entity that has solicited grants to have the conversation and the development of the outcomes. And we are the organization that will hopefully create the platform for additional dialogue and to create the support around the outcomes for the greater community. At some point, though, it's just not Carlo. It is the entire community that is doing this work. So while Carlo has been the convener, we are not the only ones involved in this work. As I said, there were 175 leaders from all over Pittsburgh who are currently engaged in this work, who are also working on these issues. And we will be doing this work together. But now it is time for us not only to do this work together, but it's time to engage you and others like you into this work. We can't do this by ourselves. This is going to be done because the entire city gets on board and says, look, we're going to change who we are. This is not who we're going to be. And we're going to be one of the best cities in the country. And I know we can do it. If Brooklyn can do it, Pittsburgh can do it. If Atlanta can do it, Pittsburgh, if Tampa, Florida can do it, Pittsburgh can do it.
Great, Kathy. You keep stirring the pot and the enthusiasm. Somebody wanted to know, does this just include Allegheny County, or does it go beyond Allegheny County?
Yeah, so we're looking at not only Allegheny County, but we're looking at the regional areas as well. So we're reaching beyond, a little beyond Allegheny.
Great. A person wanted to know, interested in helping with decreasing gun violence, how would I go about getting more involved? Who would I contact? Well, I'm very involved in this issue as well. One is Ceasefire of Pennsylvania. There's Coalition Against Violence that's convened by Tim Stevens. There is Rashad Birdsong in Homewood that has a program. There's Glenn Grayson in the Hill that has a program. There's Moms Demand Action as a program. Squirrel Hill Standing Against Violence has programs. Mad Dads have programs. You can get involved in any of those, and that would be helpful.
I will add that many of those people that you were listed participated in the retreat. So they are working towards this end and have pulled that outcome into that measurement into these outcomes as well. Great.
And then I would just say, keep after our legislature. We need to pass bills like banning assault weapons and all the different things that would help to minimize the violence. So that's what you can do. Okay, Chemo, you have something to ask?
Thank you, Doctor, for joining us tonight.
Sure.
I've lived in Pittsburgh for 6 years, and my impression is that for 400 years, people have been coming to Pittsburgh to squeeze it for profit or convenience, whether that's the environment, the labor force, which includes the Black labor force, of course, and also the physical culture of our city. Even today, developers are tearing down one beautiful historic pre-war building after another and replacing it with cheap, ugly, prefabricated structures. Think of all the buildings and institutions that have sustained Pittsburgh's Black community over the decades, like the Opera House in the Hill District And I'm sure there are countless other examples that have either been destroyed or neglected. I am alarmed that I learned recently that Carlo intends to tear down the historic St. Agnes Church, which was built with beauty and quality by hundreds of unnamed hands, some of them possibly our forebears. Is this true? And do you agree that having pride in one city is part of having a livable city, having a history that is maintained, that one can be proud of, or at least see a sense of continuity from the past?
So I want to happily report to you that we are not going to tear down that facility.
Amen.
But we are going to use that facility. And Kimo, I'm going to need you to help me raise money to get that facility renovated.
Call me.
All right, Kimo, I'm taking your name down.
We'll get you connected, Kathy.
Actually, Kathy, at every election day, I help guide you to your privacy booth where you vote in the Soldiers and Sailors. So we have met each other more than one time.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Sister Linda Yakowski.
Hello, good evening. Hi, Dr. Humphreys.
Hi, Linda.
Yes,
Linda, it's good to see you.
it's good to be here. So I was really happy to hear that you want to build on some initiatives that are going on, because we are at our Nazareth Prep High School, which is 90% African American, and every student has to work one day in a local Pittsburgh company to help pay for their tuition, because it's a school for underserved youth who can't afford tuition. It is majority white companies that we go into.
Mhm.
It's whether it's People's Natural Gas, FedEx, Mine Safety Appliance, Cohen and Grigsby, Buchanan, Ingersoll and Rooney, all of the law firms, wealth management, or even the trades. Our kids are going to PJ Dick and Macero and Mascaro corporations. They are majority white.
Mhm.
And so if we start in high school, as I'm trying to, and then whatever the post-secondary pathway is, 2-4 years, then some experience, it'll be 20 years
Mhm.
before we begin to have Black managers and people in position. If I can even keep these kids in Pittsburgh, because they get a good, 70% of my kids are all involved in AP classes.
Mhm.
They get a really good education. They have an opportunity, but they want to go to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Or DC or Philadelphia. So we need to think about these opportunities to keep them. Now, the good news is the kids who were in my program are creating a Rolodex of white mentors, for the most part, who they are connecting with, who are at a much greater socioeconomic status than they are, but it's a good connection for their future. So how do we stay involved in this effort and get noticed by the funders for opportunities to expand and develop the program?
Yeah, Sister Linda, as you know, I'm a part of that program, and I love my Nazareth Prep students. And I'm hoping that I'm helping just a little bit on that front.
You are.
But I will tell you that the first thing we're doing, Sister Linda, we're going to do an assessment of everybody who's doing the work. And what we're not going to try to duplicate the work that's already doing. We're going to try to go into those entities and try to lift up that work to a place where we can scale it so that it covers more people. And I think the Nazareth Prep model is absolutely a wonderful model in so many ways, for so many reasons. But I do think that we need to connect Nazareth Prep and Prep and other schools to more entities, more Black businesses, so that they can see or send the symbolic message that you can do all of these things. All of what you see, you can do, and you're not limited by what you see every single day, but you can become. I know that my student, she talks about owning her own business all the time, and I encourage her to think that way and to talk that way, because that's how we're going to get this change systematically, right? And so I do think once we find out who's doing what, then we can start asking funders to start pushing resources in that direction, so that we can again scale up the programs that are working. The problem is that we have so many wonderful things going on, but we only have it in such a small space, in a small place, that it never scales to the point of total impact across the city.
Great. Kathy, we had one person who wanted to know how to connect with the Black Collective and wants to work with the Black Collective. Who would they contact?
So the first step that we need to make now is to make the leap to now pulling in the white community into the Black Collective. The first meeting was, okay, as a community, what do we think are the needs, and what do we want to say that the needs are that we want the community to work on? Now it's time for us to pull in the totality of the community. And the first step with that, I would say, if you're really interested in working with it, is that you'll participate at the press conference and be a part of the community at that press conference, stating that you are supportive, but not only supportive, but you're willing to do the work that's involved in it. And then you'll get on our list and we will begin to pull you into that work.
Great. Kathy, do we have a date for that press conference yet?
We don't have a date yet, but I will send it. It's going to be in late April.
Okay.
We are still creating the energy around the press conference, because what we need corporations and we need individuals, and all of those people have to be met with.
Yeah,
to
great.
get them to come aboard. So that's the process we're in now, getting the people who will fill the press conference with their support and their dollars.
Great. And then we have a question. What is the faith community's response thus far?
So actually, this is really the first faith group that I have spoke to, and I will be going to more faith groups to talk with them about this. I really believe that this is the work that we are called to do. The least of them is who we are supposed to support as the faith community. It is the work that I believe we're all called to do every single day. And so my thoughts is, if you are a part of the faith community, this is work that you are interested in helping us to do. And so I'm going to be asking you to really let us know, and I will ask Kirk to drop our office email in the chat. Let us know if you are interested in working with us, and we will begin to contact you and involve you in this work.
We had a question about real estate and whether the broader community could or would be involved in investing in such a trust for real estate.
Well, we really haven't talked about the broader community. You know, we started out the conversation with, there were so many organizations. If you remember, during after the George Floyd incident, there were so many organizations that committed millions of dollars to making the country better. We really thought we would start there, but there will have to be individuals who will commit dollars to that trust as well. So that's where we thought we would begin. We are going to hire someone to coordinate the nuts and bolts of the work. We are at the beginning stages, but once we begin to get someone to really do this work on a daily basis, the nuts and bolts of how you can contribute will be made very clear and very easily to work with.
There was someone that was concerned about someone she knew was temporarily homeless after the fire at the Roosevelt, and just had was a lot of difficulty in finding a place that was appropriate. And she's asking what should be happening.
Homelessness is a real issue in Pittsburgh, and it's not just the Black community in Pittsburgh. And I believe this is why the committee sought to create a fund to really create some systems to address these needs of homelessness. So I can't give you an answer of what that individual should do, but that's definitely an area where we believe structures need to be built that we can really serve those individuals who are homeless. And you know, oftentimes we don't see who's homeless, especially children. Oftentimes children are couch surfing, and there is no permanent place for them to live from one day to the next. And what do we do about that? And how do you get up in the morning and be ready to go to school and ready to learn when you don't even know where you're going to go at the end of the school day? This is an issue that I truly believe we must create the structures to address. So I want to be really clear about where we are in the process. We are at that process of saying, these are the outcomes that we believe we need to accomplish. We have not created the strategies yet to accomplish that goal, because the first thing we need to do is say, who's all working in the space already? Who are the experts in the space that just don't have the resources to scale up and to cover these kinds of issues?
Great, Kathy, thank you. There are 11 outcomes. Which ones of them would be of highest priority?
So I would tell you that I believe that all 175 people who were in attendance at that retreat would say every single one of these issues is a priority. These are, and it's you know, we could have come out of that retreat with 100 priorities, but what we were really careful to do is to be succinct and manageable, to say, if we can do these things, we can get ourselves in the habit of making the community better, not only just for the Black community, but for the entire community. So I don't believe that there's one of these that's more important than the other. Yes, would I like to see the infant mortality rate decrease? Absolutely. You know, the fact that we look like a third world country in this city when it comes to our infant mortality rate is concerning on all fronts. But it's also concerning that we have people who are homeless and that people who have not been able to get jobs that can pay a living wage so that they can manage their families. Because what happens when that happens is that unfortunate incidents occur. So that is the catalyst for criminal activity to occur when people don't have the resources to do the most basic things for their families. So I would not try to put them in order because, first of all, it's not my list alone to order. That list belongs to 175 people. And I don't want this recording to go to them and they say, Kathy Humphrey, put them in order.
No, that wouldn't be fair. Yeah. Very diplomatic, Kathy. Thank you. Way back when people were asking about who's doing the analysis of the outcomes, who's collecting the outcomes, and how's that happening?
So right now, what we're trying to do is hire a company to come in and do the assessment. And that assessment, and because that's the only analysis that's being done now, all of the data that has been collected by, you know, the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C., or the Center for Race and Social Problems at the University of Pittsburgh. All the data is there. So that analysis is completed and done. But the assessment, our plan is to get a grant to hire a company to come in and look for those entities that are doing this work. So that's step one.
Okay, there was somebody who shared that there is going to be a fair housing summit on April 28th and 29th, and ask us not to schedule ourselves with the multitude of things that we generally schedule, so we could be free to be part of that. We have a hand up from Joyce and Michael.
I'd like to ask Dr. Humphrey a question about Carlow College itself. I found that very interesting, although it was something I knew already about the college being set up originally to serve a disadvantaged population, namely the children, the girls of Irish poor Catholic immigrant families. But today is a different day, and the disadvantaged are no longer that sector of the population. And so I think would it not be time for Carlow to change its focus, that it would be serving primarily young African-American girls, and that would be its primary kind of population.
So what I would tell you is today, about 44% of our students come from disadvantaged families, 44%. 27% of our students are students of color today. And so when I say we continue to do that work that the Sisters of Mercy started, that is exactly what we're doing. We are about to get involved with really becoming an institution that helps foster children to succeed. That is an area that is really dear to me. And when Sister Sheila told me that Catherine McCauley, who started the Sisters of Mercy, was a foster parent, I knew I was on the right track with that program. And I believe it's a program that we should be engaged in. We are hoping to start a program very soon to help single mothers get a certificate or to further their education, but specifically we are developing an LPN program so that some of these women who are currently are dependent upon the welfare system, that in 16 months they could become licensed practical nurses and gaining a salary between $45,000 and $50,000. And our hope really is that they won't stop there, but they will come back after they realize that they can do this and get their RN license as well. So we are doing several work in that area that I believe is all mission focused and mission centered to help those who otherwise would not have an opportunity. That's very important to me. But I have to tell you that it is extremely hard work. But we're happy to do that hard work because those students will need a different kind of support system. They will need 12-month housing. They will need a different kind of support. Imagine, we have homeless students today at Carlow. As a matter of fact, a few months ago, one of those students found their way into my office, and I happened to be free that day. And she said to me that she was concerned that she couldn't come back to school the next semester because she could not pay her tuition. And she explained to me that she really was homeless, that her parents could not help her, that she had gained 67 credit hours completely on her own, but she was completely tapped out at that point and needed assistance to finish school. Now, how can we let a young woman who's a junior in college, who's majoring in nursing with a 3.0, how can we let her leave school? We cannot. And so finding ways and finding resources to help these students who are homeless. Imagine being in college with no net, with no one. I was in Costco's slightly a few weeks before this young woman, and I had talked and I was looking at all the families who were getting their child ready for college, and I was seeing them, fill their baskets up with baskets and laundry detergent and snacks, and I couldn't help but to think about that young woman, and I kept thinking, who's helping her? And that's the kind of school that we choose to be. And that's what's important to us. Today, last year, probably one of the crowning moments for me, and I've told this story a million times because it has impacted me so. At commencement, I asked all the students who were the first people in their families to graduate from college, I asked them to stand. And when 60% of our graduates stood up, it literally took my breath away. Because the roaring of the families and the excitement of the families, because their families' lives have been changed forever because that son or that daughter has graduated from college. And this is the work that I believe as a Catholic institution, we must do. We must find the resources to help these young people to change their lives and to change the lives of their families. So we're still doing that work.
Great. Going back, Sister Mary Troutman wanted to remind us, and I was aware of this too, that Ceasefire is sponsoring an advocacy day, March 23rd to Harrisburg to talk to our legislature about reducing violence, gun violence. And so please consider, I'm getting on the bus. There's a bus leaving at 5:30 in the morning from Station Square, and there's one leaving from North Hills. So please, that's another thing that you can do, sort of thing. This person says housing costs in the city are increasing in rentals and for home buyers, in part due to corporations buying large numbers of residential properties, often using "we buy ugly homes" or will pay cash for immediate purchases. So how can we have a conversion of heart from corporations who do that?
Well, I think there's many ways we can go after this. One way, that I continue to think about is, we have these share sales of homes that have gone in default already. Why can't we use some of those homes, right? They're in default already. Why can't we take a risk on these individuals who've been paying their rent every month and allow them to purchase some of these homes that really we have no risk? We are in risk with these houses. That's just one idea. I think there's a ton of things that need to be uncovered and discovered. And I think there are a ton of people who are working on this work as well. We just need to really get together and make a decision that we're going to change in this regard.
Great. Kathy, I was interested what your reaction to both some of us was at Cornell West presentation, and he stated that a person said that they wanted to be his ally, and he took a different approach to it. He says, I don't need an ally. We need to be humans together. So what's your thought around that? We all wrestle with terminology and what words to use. What's your thoughts around that?
Well, this is a situation where, I don't know that we are necessarily allies in this work. I believe this is all of our work. And when we ask for these amounts of money to do this work, it's not charity. This is work that needs to happen for all of us. And so in this regard, in this regard. I can't say that I agree that there are not other times when an ally is not necessary and needed, because I think at some point you do need an ally because you stand outside of a system and you need people who are inside of the system to really assist you. I often say it's very difficult for someone who the stereotype is about to remove the stereotype from them, because the reality, until that person who is outside, who serves as an ally, who serves as an advocate, comes in to take away the stereotype, to diminish the untruth, oftentimes it does not happen because it appears to be too subserving. But the issue we're talking about today, while we call it a Black collective, this is not a Black issue. This is a Pittsburgh issue that must be addressed so that our entire city becomes stronger. And if we go into this believing that we are just helping Black people, we will not have the stamina to really get the work done, because when you're helping someone else, you can always kind of lay back at a certain point. But when you realize that this work is not being done for them, it's being done for us, it changes the energy behind the work and the determination behind the work. It's not for Black people, it is for Pittsburgh. It is for all of us who live in this community.
Great, thank you so much. There's just a question, how can we access this recording? You can go into our website, give it a couple days, and it will be on the Association of Pittsburgh Priests recording there. And also, it'll be on we have a YouTube channel. So you can just Google Association of Pittsburgh Priests YouTube and it'll come up. Kathy, I was wondering if there would be, of course, they would have to approve this, but anyway, that we would get to know the 175 that participated in this. I'm sure some of us know probably nearly all of them, but there might be a way of connecting with people that are already doing some of the work. So that might.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have to loop back to them to see if they're open for me to disseminate the list, but I'm not sure. I don't know why they wouldn't be, but I do have that list, and we do use that list to communicate back with that group frequently to let them know every step we're making.
Great. Someone's asking if will the date of the press conference be shared by the APP? Yes, we could send it out to our connections once. Kathy will let me know, and then once I know, then we'll put it out through our networks. Mary Troutman, you have something to.
Yes, since there's time, I'd like to expand a little bit on what this Advocacy Day is. It's actually a day of lobbying in the House of Representatives in the General Assembly in Harrisburg. So, it's a joint, our Coalition for Safe Community Spaces is collaborating with Ceasefire PA and March for Our Lives. Those kids in Parkland, Florida really started something. But anyway, the idea is now that there's a Democratic majority in the House of Representatives, we might have a chance to get some kind of gun safety legislation passed. We're not allowed to say gun control. We have to say gun safety. Who cares? Just so it happens. So, it's less likely with the Senate, but if the House could pass some meaningful gun safety legislation, the chances of pressuring the Senate into going along with it would improve. And I'm sure that Josh Shapiro would sign anything. So that's what that's all about. It's lobbying. And I guess, people will divide up and go to their respective representatives in the House and kind of pressure them. Remember what the kids from Parkland said, thoughts and prayers aren't enough.
Right. Thanks, Mary. And it's also going to be a March for Life. So we will be marching through Harrisburg as well. Yes, it is okay to share the info about the APP YouTube channel. We want people to utilize, and all our other speakers are also there. So please utilize that and keep spreading the word. This has been wonderful, Kathy. Thank you so much. And it won't hurt for us to finish a little bit early. I think people are tired. But do you have a closing comment that you'd like to offer us?
Sure. You know, as we look at this work, I think about the words of Margaret Mead, who said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever did." And I believe we can change Pittsburgh. And I don't believe it takes a whole lot of people to do that. I think it takes a group of committed individuals who are willing to do the work. I'm going to close with a little song called Ordinary People, and then I'm going to let you go. And the song just goes like this. Just ordinary people, my God uses ordinary people. He uses people just like you and me who are willing to do as he commands. God uses people who will give their all, no matter how small your all may seem to you, because little becomes much as you place it in the Master's hand. Thank you for allowing me to be with you.
Oh, thank you so much.